Okay, so this is kind of a new public meeting or presentation for the city. But what we wanted to do is kind of go into 2024, providing an update on not only the projects that you're going to see out there, but also be able to dive into a little bit of the why, why we're doing these projects. So we've got several department heads that are going to do presentations in their areas. We've got city council members here, so thank you for attending. And like I said, ask questions. The whole goal of this is that you leave feeling like you're informed and know what's going on this year. So we always like to start off talking about roads. And what I've been telling people is if you liked last year from a road construction standpoint, you're going to like this year. If you didn't like last year, you're probably not going to like this year. Because we're going to be spending about $10 million again this year, which is was the level of effort last year. So you can kind of see 2023, 2024, that's $10 million a year of investment in our road program. That includes resurfacing and reconstruction projects. That's about double what we were doing kind of the four years prior to that, and triple what we had been doing prior to that. So there's a lot of focused investment on the part of the city in improving our road system. And Ben Stuckey, our city engineer, is going to kind of kick things off and go through some of the criteria and the project. So Ben?
Yeah, like Scott said, interactive, so cut me off if you have any questions or comments or anything like that. First, just wanted to get into the whole, how do we determine what street we're doing, if it's roadway resurfacing or reconstruction. So we have a 5-year plan. It's on the website, or you can have access to it, where we lay out all the roads we want to do in the next coming 5 years. Every 3 years we do a pavement rating where we hire out someone who goes around and literally rates every one of our streets on a scale of 1 to 100. 65 and above being a good percentage, and then I believe below 35 is classified as poor. So those percentages up there, you can tell in the last 10 plus years we've done a significant job of raising our streets, going from 50% quote unquote good to the 70.3. So that PCR rating, yes. Sorry.
I've got a question. Who is it? Are the people that inspect the roads, are they contractors that the city contracts, or is it city people that have, what's the criteria?
Yeah, they're hired out. They don't work for the city, but we hire them to do that.
So they are contractors that actually do road, highways and things like that. They're like, not a road crew, but that's their expertise as far as that, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So that rating helps us determine a good portion of what roads we want to do, when we want to do them, and then the next criteria being, is this just resurfacing or are we completely reconstructing this road? And that heavily determines based on the utilities under the road, sanitary, storm, water. Are they in good condition? Because you don't want to just resurface the road and then have to go in and tear it up to fix the utilities below it. And then the biggest thing probably is just funding. We're able to do that significant increase because of grants. ODOT helps us out a lot. So if we get funding, it makes it much easier to add roads to the list. So here's the standard pavement detail for city roads. The top 2 courses, surface intermediate course, that's usually if we're just resurfacing a road, we're just replacing one of those 2. Doing some base repair versus reconstruction, you're going all the way down to subgrade. The bottom notes, you can kind of see it interesting that almost 70% of our soils in Lebanon are not really suited to sport roads, not ideal, which makes it tougher and makes it for a lot of the cracking that can happen. It's just based on bad subgrade. So this is an example of one of the, it's Summit Street this year. So as part of the 2023 resurfacing program, just got finished a month or two ago. When the inspection was completed that I was referencing earlier, it came in at a 38, just for reference. It's one of our worst roads for sure, or was one of the worst roads. 65 being what is the cutoff for the poor condition. And then $90,000 were spent in base repair, so that's also the number we look at. How much are we doing base repair? Is it just worth completely reconstructing the road if that base repair number gets too high? So some of it was just resurfaced. And then the bottom left there kind of breaks down the cost benefit analysis. Is how much is it to resurface or repair? It's significant to reconstruct the road, about 5 to 6 times higher. And that stat at the bottom, 1 mile of road costs around $5.3 million to reconstruct based on our estimates we've gotten the past few years, versus 1 mile of road just to resurface is around $900,000. So looking at future projects, roadways that we are coming up, 24, this will be starting in the summer. It's 42 Cincinnati Ave into 123 and kind of going out of town. We received a $673,000 grant for that, and then partner with ODOT, 80/20 on the roads because they are state routes as well. And then 25, so 23, 24, and 25 are all in conjunction. It's called the Urban Paving Plan. We're doing it with Ohio Department of Transportation, where they pay for the 80%, like I mentioned, and we pay for the 20%. So 25 will be 48, and then those pieces of 42 and 123, but the big one being Broadway, starting at Warren and heading out of town. So 24 paving program, this is our program. This is where we get into the neighborhoods and some of the smaller streets. Those are the streets listed for 24. That's Miller's Crossing and Stone Ridge subdivision, as well as just Mechanic Street, that section. So that'll take place around the fall. It's coming fall. And then Gloucester Road is one of our bigger projects coming up. Around a $5.5 million project. It'll be the first roundabout in the city, going in Gloucester and Cincinnati Ave, and then Gloucester Road will be continued to be reconstructed all the way to Main Street.
When's that project going to start?
That project, well, Sean might get into it, but we're having to deal with Duke and relocate their poles, so it is now set to start, I think, March of 25, or getting into the summer of 25, it'll start late spring.
Yeah, the Duke, they have transmission and distribution that runs along the east side there, so they'll have to relocate those lines prior to the construction of that. And they've got a pretty long lead time for the poles. It was around 12 months, and it's been stretched to about 16 or 18 months just to order the material. So that's really what's caused some of that.
Are we paying for is Duke paying, are they responsible for the cost of moving their lines, or are we paying for that?
Duke is paying for the relocation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, John. Yep. So that got pushed back. It was supposed to be a 24 project, got pushed back to a 25 project. State Route 63 widening, this will not start until 2027 construction-wise. We're just getting into the first phase of finding a consultant on board, working with the TID and the county, hand in hand kind of to get that going. State Route 63 will be widened out of town all the way to 741, but this is just the portion that the city will be responsible for. And like I mentioned, that $5.7 million grant is the reason that we are able to do this project.
Is that to the core?
Yeah, so there's a Parkside development, kind of where that stops, and part of that development is they have to widen the road. So we will pick it up where they left, county will take it out to 741. But yeah, it's right a little bit past McClure is.
Yeah, where this road widening is, the western edge is right there where Cardinal is.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Has the county given a time frame on their project
On
to widen it to 7?
when they're gonna start construction, do you know?
No, they're pursuing funding right now for the engineering. So I think the goal with the city and the county is for both of us to be doing engineering this year. I think they're trying to kind of match our construction timeline, but we're a step ahead of them in the sense that we've already secured funding for our section. But the goal, if everything works out, they've submitted a grant to get engineering funding this year. So ideally, we're both designing ours at the same time and can kind of coordinate that work. But no construction timeline for the county at this point.
So I'm assuming this is like from the Big Mike's area out?
Yeah, Neil Armstrong is it.
Okay, so how are the McClure, Markey, are those, anything happening with those? Are they
No.
staying as is?
Those stay as is.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be 3 lanes instead of the 2-lane section in front of it, but yeah, 63 will just be kind of tying into those existing roads. So no improvement from the city standpoint.
So it would basically be 2 lanes plus a middle turn lane?
Correct.
Kingsview Bridge project, so we received a $2 million grant from ODOT as well on this. I think about a year ago, that bridge got downgraded, basically not allowing certain trucks that have everyone's full to cross the bridge due to their load rating. So this became a priority for us, especially the county is working on a few other projects in that area on Mason Morrow, Mill Grove, that would be using that bridge as a detour route. So that means that we had to replace that bridge prior to any of their projects, so kind of went to the top of our list. And we're currently working through the design portion right now, and the construction not starting till 25 again. And then this is a completely a county project, but it's the 71 and 48 bypass. They're in works to put a redesign. Scott, do you know the timeline on that?
I don't know the timeline on construction.
Okay.
I know they're kind of pursuing funding for all of that, but it's kind of a phased approach.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But this is a completely county project, so I'm not overly familiar with the details. But that's just a brief diagram, I think, of what the concept they have currently. This is the, sorry, this is the next section for 63 going out to 741. That, again, will be a county project.
And I think just so folks know, the county has awarded a contract and is moving forward with widening State Route 63 to 5 lanes from the road to 741. So that project's moving forward in construction. So, I think the city's strategy has been at 741, obviously, narrow it down, if you will, to just a 3-lane section from 741 all the way, through downtown Lebanon. But you will see a lot of construction from the county for the section of 63 from 741 to the roadway, or to the road.
But even out there, it's going to be 3 lanes, the center turn lane?
Yeah, ours, the portion that is in the city and kind of the portion that we control and what we communicated with the county here is that it's going to be a center turn lane with, 1 travel lane in each direction. For specific developments, there may be like a dedicated right turn into access points along there, but the typical section would be 3 lanes from 741 into Lebanon.
I just know from my experience that center lane is really going to be a passing lane. It's really bad.
Okay.
Where will the roundabouts be? I remember in the past, they talked about a couple of roundabouts.
Go back to our section. Yeah. So the scoping for the engineering of the section that is within the city, There is going to be a roundabout evaluated for Marquee Road and Roughway. So that's going to be part of the engineering process to look at the viability and feasibility of the roundabouts. At this point, don't know if it's going to be recommended or not from the traffic engineers, but it will be looked at those locations as part of our project.
That's it for me.
Yeah, I'll jump into the parks projects. Any questions about, yeah, quickly.
Do you know where Clay Street is?
I do.
I don't see that anywhere in the 27.
I don't know when.
We've got the CIP here, we can take a look at that.
I mean, that road is
Yeah.
completely falling apart.
Yeah. We are in the process of updating the CIP right now, so we can definitely take a look at that.
It's in there, so.
In the plan.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
I'll get
One
you
of our properties, I mean, it's gone from
Okay.
there.
Okay.
I'll get you an
It
exhibit.
has to be an
Yeah, we'll
emergency
find it.
repair or something,
What street was that?
but Clay Street.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was at the Warren County meeting, I don't know if you know any updates from when they were talking about the roads, they're gonna make the requirements stricter for like new developments coming in, because they were seeing failure within like a year or two when it should be lasting for 15 or whatever. Do you know the status of that? Did they make the depth higher for new developments?
I'm not sure. I mean, I can speak for
Now
Lebanon
around-
developments, but I don't know.
I can tell you our standards are higher from
Okay.
a roadway cross-section standpoint than the
Yeah.
counties. At
Okay.
least their old standards, I don't know if they've updated them, but I do know that our standards for years have been higher than
Okay.
theirs from a roadway, because we hear about it from developers all the time.
Yeah,
So,
from the county and neighboring communities, we definitely have the highest standard.
Yeah, around the end of the year, they were talking about increasing those.
they probably need to. Okay, a couple of trail projects I wanted to go over. The first one is, that's going to go into construction later this year, is the North Broadway Trail. And supporting that is a couple grants totaling $1.75 million. But that's essentially going to replace the bike lane with a dedicated bike path behind the curb from the fire station, kind of where the bike path comes out onto Broadway now, all the way north up to Miller Road. So that project is being done in coordination with water main replacement work that Darren's going to talk about. So the total project cost is well above $2 million, but kind of the trail section portion is in that kind of $1.5 million range. We talked about the bike lane. I know a lot of folks don't like it. So I guess the good news is the bike lane is going away. Obviously, this is going to be a separate, actually 11-foot wide paved trail. Part of the requirement, though, with the ODOT safety funds is that the roadway section remain 3 lanes. So from a traffic volume standpoint and from a kind of a safety assessment, ODOT wants the lanes to remain 3, 1 lane in each direction with a center turn lane. There will be a 4th kind of dedicated right turn lane into the fairgrounds, and I think up at Miller Road as well. So you're going to see the curb that's there now kind of shift into where the bike lane pavement is now. You'll see a much wider tree lawn area and then an 11-foot wide bike path that will replace the sidewalk going on Broadway. Any questions about that? And then next year, we have what's called the Bowman Trail Project, which is kind of the red line there. That'll again kind of be an offshoot of the Lebanon Countryside Trail. That'll kind of wrap behind Colony Square and then go through Bowman Preserve, which is green space that the city owns, up to Monroe Road. Again, there's a couple grants totaling $1.25 million that are supporting that. And it kind of advances the city's goal of connecting more neighborhoods to a trail system. So kind of the neighborhoods there off of Summit Street will have access to the trail, and then kind of connecting them into some of our business districts, and really starts kind of creating a loop, kind of a loop trail system. So everything in yellow is either in place or will be in construction this year. Everything then in red is a kind of a next year project. And then in blue, those are kind of future trail extensions that are in the city's trail master plan. You know, the goal is to kind of continue to branch out from kind of our core, you know, trail network that we have now and start connecting to like the high school. Get connected out to Parkside and the new park out there. Get connected out to Miller Park and the subdivisions off of Miller Road. But I tell folks, if you see a trail getting built, it's grant supported. And we've had good success in getting grants for the trails. But it definitely is dependent on the grants to kind of secure the funding. A couple of other park projects I wanted to talk about. The pickleball courts, so if you're driving up Broadway, kind of past Catch a Fire and the new Script Coffee location, you'll see kind of an asphalt pad out there. That's going to be 3 new pickleball courts. We'll be color coding them in the spring when the temperature permits, you know, putting the fence up, but really trying to address the growing demand for pickleball in our community. And it's a good way to kind of activate that corridor that's seen a lot of city, but also a lot of private investment along there. We do have funding for kind of a small skate park feature to put in our parks, and that's kind of the concept that you see in the top right there. We are moving forward with design and construction of a new performance stage in Bicentennial Park. Obviously, there's a lot of the downtown events, you know, family programming that takes place in Bicentennial Park. So we want to remove the existing gazebo that's there and build a more permanent kind of performance stage that'll help support that. And then we have applied for state capital funding, and right now we're pretty high up on the list. We are optimistic that we'll get funding as part of the final process to replace the concession building and restrooms that are out of Colonial Park East with a new building that includes, you know, shelters. Our youth baseball and softball leagues, that's really kind of their base of operations out of Colonial Park East. If any of you that have had kids or had ball games out there, the existing buildings over 40 years old and just really no longer adequately serves their needs. So it'd be a good project to hopefully move forward with. If we can get the state funding, that's likely from a construction standpoint would be next year. Yeah.
Which part was state park?
We're looking at a couple different options. You know, one option the park board identified was Colonial Park North. I think we are going to schedule a community or kind of a neighborhood meeting out at Pleasant Park to talk about it out there as well. So I think right now, at least from what came out of the park board, was Colonial Park North, but that's to be determined. That's it, yeah.
Earlier, late last year, there was talk about a splash pad someplace. Is that?
I mean, it's in the master plan to do a splash pad. We have no, you know, from a funding standpoint, that project's not in our 5-year capital plan. I think one of the challenges with the splash pad, it's, you know, part of it's obviously the initial construction cost, but a big component of that is the ongoing maintenance expenses and making sure that if we're going to do something like that, it's kind of like managing a swimming pool, frankly. Yeah, so right now there's nothing concrete in terms of moving forward with the construction of the splash pad. But it is in our plan. Obviously, we've got a lot of community input over the years that it's something folks would like to see and something we continue to discuss and look at.
So are the pictures depicted here, the renderings, is that the anticipated look of these things, or are these just?
Kind of. No, I would say the bottom ones, those are very conceptual. So, you know, are you talking about like the Bicentennial Park stage?
In the concession
The
building?
concession, so those are very high-level renderings. We're moving into the design phase for the Bicentennial Park stage. You know, our goal is obviously for it to fit into the historic character. So there is kind of a brick wrap that you see on the columns. The roof material would match what you saw us build in the new public restrooms downtown. But we're just now moving into kind of that architectural final design phase for the stage. I think the brick kind of reflects, obviously, a tie into the historic district. It's really hard to get a clear, that's kind of an aerial view on the concession building. So that one is really just kind of an image at this point. And that is not moved into the actual design phase yet. Any other questions? And just finally, kind of on the parks front, you may have noticed, you know, some clearing along Turtle Creek and some of the waterways in our community. That's been an effort that's been initiated to really do two things. One, remove honeysuckle and other invasive plant species that are really kind of choking out some of these stream corridors, but also to kind of open up visibility to our waterways. That was a recommendation that's been made both in our downtown master plan as well as our comprehensive plan to really try to better connect some of the water features going through our community. And so you kind of see Cedar City Park, which is kind of down there by the train station. That project was kind of a step in that direction. We're going to continue to kind of target certain areas. You know, this will definitely kind of be an ongoing annual effort. It's one of those things, once you start, you got to keep up with honeysuckle removal. I think this is my last slide. Yeah, no turn shot. So just grand history. You know, folks kind of ask, well, you know, how's the city doing all this, or where's the money coming from? A lot of it's coming from grants, as we've mentioned, and tried to connect with each specific project. Last year, city staff secured over $10 million in grants to support projects, mainly road and parks. And you can kind of see the 5-year history of grants that have been secured by the city. And they are in excess of $30 million. So, you know, shout out to a lot of the staff here who work hard to get these grants. It really allows us to do a lot of these projects. Okay, Sean Coffey is our Director of Electric, and he's going to talk about electric.
Thanks, Scott. One of the big projects that we really started last year and really evaluated over the last probably 5 to 8 years is a utility solar array system. You know, we provide power to everyone in the city, and we try with that supply to really diversify that supply. What that does is it gives us competitive rates, plus limits our exposure to one big supply of power to the city. So in keeping with that, we continue to evaluate solar until it made good financial sense. And finally the numbers worked out. Plus there was a change in some federal law a short time ago that actually allowed the city to also receive rebates, much like most consumers can get with installing renewable energy. So we took advantage of that, and Scott showed the previous slide where the city's received millions of dollars in grants every year. With this project, we're going to get about a $4.5 million, effectively a grant, to help pay for this project. So this diagram is a little busy, so I'll sort of step you through it. But what we're proposing here, what's going to be installed, is actually 3 locations, what we call a western field, central, and eastern. So I'll sort of step each one. The western field is really tucked behind that plot of property between Cardinal and the Warren County Garage. It's city-owned property in the floodplain. And really, it's set back about 1,000 feet off of Main Street. And then you can see the white area, the 15 acres, that's where that solar array will be placed there. Then the central field, which is really tucked behind the black barn, but a little bit closer to Main Street, which will fill about 16 acres. And then finally, what we call the eastern field, you can see there off of Gloucester Road. The city's going to be relocating the existing substation down to that same location, and then tucked behind the substation will be the solar field out in that area. We have to construct some new distribution lines through that area to tie the solar fields into our grid system. And then eventually that same line will go out and feed the residential subdivision Parkside out on West Main. Yes?
Do you endorse the solar roof panels? I don't know if you've seen it, it's advertised all over YouTube and everything. They say if you type in your area code, they come in and they're supposed to be doing this for free, but does Lebanon endorse that, or that have nothing to do with that?
We don't endorse any manufacturer or representative like that. But we do allow that in our service area. We actually have we're probably close to 24 locations now where either residential or commercial have solar panels on their roof to help supply their power there locally. You're welcome. So yeah, this project, you'll start to see construction. They'll first build their access roads in, fence it in to secure the site, and then they'll sort of work like a production system where they'll start to install the supports. So they'll probably start in one field, then that support will go to the next, and then they'll come in and start putting the panels up. But they're expected to be done by this fall and tied into our grid so we can start to receive power from that.
You want to talk a little bit about what the feasibility study, the projected $27 million in savings?
Yes. As Scott was mentioning, before obviously we went into this project, we went through a pretty extensive feasibility study. We hired somebody that does this and evaluated all the different aspects. It's a pretty complicated project, because the total cost is a little over $14 million, but the grants bring it to $9.5 million. But as Scott said, working through that feasibility study, over the life of the solar panels, which is expected to be 30 plus years, that it's going to save about $27 million. Because there's a couple of ways that it helps us out, both in savings and supplying the power. The cost for power here for all of the people that live in Lebanon, there's really 3/4 of that cost is the actual energy itself. And then about 25% of that cost is transporting that power to Lebanon. So one of the things by having something on site is we save on that transportation cost. So that 25% that goes towards getting the power to Lebanon, we get to have savings in that, in addition to the competitive nature of the power that comes out of it. Yes?
Are you going to pass that on to the citizens, or is that just going into the general fund for the city? Or
No, anything, anything dealing with the electric fund stays in the electric fund.
Legally, you can't. Legally, I can't take electric, I call Sean's money electric money,
It's not, yes.
and pay for a police officer. Any savings in a utility stays in that utility.
so it's not coming directly to the citizens?
Well, people that pay an electric bill will benefit from it, absolutely.
So we won't pay as much on our electric bill?
Correct.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes?
Who's the manufacturer of the panels?
I can't remember the exact name of the manufacturer, but yeah, we evaluated everything. Most products come from China. And we evaluated, number one, if there was a U.S. source for the panels. And there's only one company that makes panels in the United States. And we couldn't put an order in and receive the panels until about 2028. So both the time plus the added expense of trying to find a U.S. manufacturer really doesn't work out. Yes?
You said the project, it would last for 30 years. Are you saying the panels would last for 30 years, or?
That's the expected life of the panels.
Okay.
There's other components.
Is there like a warranty, like what happens if one breaks? Like what's the cost to replace that if something breaks down or an animal attacks it or something?
Well, just like with any of our infrastructure, we do have insurance. On a major capital improvement like this will always be part of our insurance policy that the city takes out.
We did include, you can see in the pro forma, we have annual operations and maintenance expenses that are built into that. So you can see with the pro forma, about $100,000 a year was built into estimating, investment or expenses that the city's going to incur to maintain a system like this.
And we're also buying a small percentage of excess that we'll store panel-wise, so that if something does happen, we have the ability to then take them out and replace what's been damaged.
So that savings of like, what was it, 24 million over the life, does that include, like in that is figured in like these operational costs, this 100,000 each year, that's not, in the 10,000 or whatever that we have to pay up front isn't in that?
Yeah, that's a lifetime savings, including the maintenance costs that Scott mentioned.
It's all,
And
So that's
it's all
what we're
included.
paying into it and then the maintenance costs, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
yeah, you can look at kind of the simple payback on the projects, less than 10 years.
So for the average homeowner that lives in the city, what is the expected reduction in utility bill?
Well,
Starting next year, I assume that this is going to be implemented this fall. Is that correct?
yes, it'll go online this fall, but really we won't start realizing the power coming off of it probably until the following summer. So probably the summer of '25, we'll start to get some of it. Even though it's 40 acres, it only supplies about 3% of our needs. So when you water that down in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it doesn't make you're not going to see a significant savings on your bill at home. But I think the next slide.
So what is the amount, how many panels are per acre? How many are going to be sitting out in that field?
Well, I know
I mean, does it look like what's over off of somebody help me, Brewer Road? Is the density, is that what we're talking about?
The zoo, you're talking about the zoo property?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, I believe, and I don't have the specifics on that, but I believe like the acreage is larger out there in total. Maybe you can kind of go back to the map.
Yeah.
But I would assume they probably can place them about the same, right?
Yeah,
Structure-wise.
spacing-wise, about the same. In the western field, there's about 7,200 panels. That central field is a little less than 7,000, I think like 6,900 panels. And then the eastern field off of Gloucester Road is about 3,500 panels. Yes.
So Western Field line up with the runway with the airport.
I think it's east of it, just east of it.
I think, the question about, how much of a cost savings and what the impact, so the way our electric rates are structured, whatever the city's costs are for acquiring power and these transmission or transportation costs that Sean mentioned, those are just automatically passed through to the bill payers, the rate payers.
Right.
So anything that we can do to lower that automatically gets reflected in your all's electric bill. It's kind of hard to put a number on what that's actually going to be at this point, but it's consistent with our ongoing efforts to kind of diversify our power portfolio so that we don't have all of our eggs in one basket, because the market can fluctuate significantly. And Sean and I have been here for over 20 years and lived through some of that. So we're just trying to kind of spread out our, power acquisition portfolio to hedge against that. You have a question?
Yeah, so I want to mention, so when Sean and Scott talked with us about this, one of the things that we looked at, and I don't know if you have a slide on it, you're going to talk about peak shaving? Because this is what really helped us when we were looking at this too. So Sean is excellent at explaining this, and it took us a little while because he's really smart. But the way that we get, and you'll explain better, but the way that we end up paying for our electricity has a lot to do with what the peak rate. So I'll let you explain that part. So he can explain how that makes a big difference. So us just taking it down a little bit, even in the summer, is going to affect the rates for a long time. And one of the other things that we love seeing was that even though this may not be a situation where like, oh, we're throwing money back at everybody who's paying for electricity, our rates have already stayed down because Sean and other staff have done an excellent job of looking ahead, buying power in blocks and things that I'm not going to explain it because that's his realm, but the way that they have looked ahead at it and kept those rates down, like here's the thing, if you are somewhere else, anybody even in like the townships and things like that paying through like Duke Energy, their rates have gone up significantly where ours have stayed out. So look at like this slide, so where it's not necessarily going to be money back, it's everything to keep it down, which for us when we were making that decision was a big part of it.
Yeah, what she was speaking about was that transportation charge. A lot of how they charge utilities, and we're charged just like everyone else that's tied into the grid, is they look at when the system peaks. And whenever that system peaks, which is typically around this area, is in the summertime. So whenever the system hits its peak, whatever our demand, whatever the city's using at that time, that's what establishes what we pay for the next 12 months. So if we have the ability to reduce our peak during that time, put some sources internal, and of course solar is typically going to be producing a lot because when summer peaks hit is in the middle of summer when the sun is blazing hot. So that's where it can also help reduce our peak during that period of time, and then that saves us for the next 12 months. We looked at it through the pro forma, and it equated to about $250,000 a year just in the peak savings with the system for the next 30 years. And that's, the other beauty of it is it's really a relatively fixed cost source for us. Can you imagine locking in your gas prices at $2.50 for the next 30 years? Well, that's what we're doing with this source. It takes up a lot of property, yes. But once again, we're diversifying what we have, and this is one way we can sort of lock in something for a long period of time at a very good price. So also, as she mentioned, this is just something that we looked at in September, and we pay attention. One of our goals is to be a very competitive supplier for the city. So we keep an eye on our regional peers, Duke, AES Ohio, and even other municipals in the state of Ohio. And this is just a reflection of how we've done. So in September, we looked at it, and the average residential bill here in Lebanon was $87 a month for somebody using 750 kilowatt hours. The city of Hamilton, who is also another city-owned and operated electric system, their bill would have been $119. Somebody with Duke, that just takes Duke's supply, $129, AES, $127. And pretty much those costs have stayed about the same. I just looked at it last month, and we're pretty much in that same ballpark. So yeah, we try to do everything that we can. We look at everything to try to minimize the cost, but still provide high-quality service, and we're here and accessible. You can find us.
Sean, I think when you came and spoke with us, there was some comments that this was a hasty decision, and it wasn't. I know you guys have been working on it for a long time, and we had several hours of conversation. council level when you came in. And the peak purchasing probably made the most sense. This was never intended to replace our electric, which there's that thought too. We know it's not going to replace, it's supplement, and that we might not see a decrease. I mean, we might not see money back in our pocket, but instead of that being $100 in 3 years, that might be $89 in 3 years. So those were the selling points as to us. It's and the location. It's land that's floodplain, not buildable land, and it's tucked away, pretty hidden. There's a different feeling for solar and wind. I drive from here to Delaware a couple times a month, and the farmers' fields are filled with no solar, no wind, keep farmland, farmland. This isn't really farmland. We just lease it to farmers they can put corn and beans in there, but it's underwater, like right now. So it's really not usable land. So we're very, very lucky that we weren't taking prime real estate to do this, because then it might not have made sense to do. My question on top of all that is this expandable? Can we make it bigger? Or is this, will be the size of this for the next 27 years?
Well, it just all depends on what the city wants to do. As you said, we pretty much filled in the spaces where it was in the floodplain. I'm sure that the city would want to continue to develop the developable areas, but we can always look at other areas.
But the main component, I know there's solar and I get it, but the main part beyond the panels could take on more panels if at some point we wanted to add another 100 acre down the road.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. We just have to make sure that it's feasible to tie into our system, how we tie it into our system. But yeah, these are, you can plug and play. You can put them wherever, as long as our system is out there to tie in. Because yeah, these tie directly into our distribution system. Any other questions? All right, well, I think that, oh, I do have one more. You slid that in.
Yeah, I did.
As I mentioned before, in that same corridor, what we call our Gloucester Road substation. This was really the original substation of the city, put in back in the 60s. And as you can see from this image from last year, just during, it was a heavy rain period, but nothing unusual. It wasn't a 100-year rain or a 50 or 20-year rain. You can see what typically happens at that substation. It's located in the floodplain. And yeah, if we have to go in and work on that, our workers have to walk through the water and work on electrical devices standing in water, which isn't recommended. So this location has reached its useful life. And so it was time for us to reinvest in this, and we started looking and saying, yeah, we need to remedy this situation. So that's where we found that property where the eastern solar array is going to go. And we're going to relocate this substation down to that area, right along the railroad tracks. So that's been underway for about a year and a half. Project cost of about $10 million. I can talk about substations all day long. But we have to hand it off to Darren.
Well, Gloucester Road seems to be a hot topic tonight.
Yes, a lot of money being spent out there.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Darren Owens, Director of Public Works. I guess this project is not upcoming. This one is actually now, I don't want to say it's finished, but we're still waiting on backup generators. Our Gloucester Road pump station is right across the street on Gloucester Road where you saw his electric, flooded. That was, the pump station there, our original wastewater treatment plant was located in that area. That wastewater plant was built in the 1950s. So that's about 80% of the city's sanitary sewer flows to Gloucester Road area there. So our pump station there, once again, that reached its useful service life. It's been there for a while. It's been updated, renovated several times. In 2019, we received a notice of violation from the Ohio EPA that came, let's see, where's my study there? So we experienced some rain events that basically it would flood, the EQ basin would fill up, and then we would discharge raw sewage straight into Turtle Creek. That's kind of what got us a notice of violation. Right now, our pump station, the new pump station is fully operational. Just to tell you where we are, so in January 9th of 2024, we experienced a rain event, so it's rained here for what, 2 weeks? It generated a flow of 7.7 million gallons per day going through the wastewater plant. That's how much water was flowing through the plant. At that point in time, there was no water at all, no wastewater flowing into our EQ basin, which is the big concrete pond that we have there. There's no water flowing into that whatsoever. Our new pump station was sending that amount of flow down to the wastewater plant. So to put that in perspective, the next sentence there underneath there. So in 2018, in February and April of 2018, we had 2 storms that basically generated the same amount of flow down to the wastewater plant. But because we couldn't keep up with it, we discharged 3.5 million gallons of sewage into Turtle Creek. With the same event that we just experienced this year, and it went straight to the plant. So that right there, that $12.6 million, very well spent. So as of right now, we have met the notice of violation. We're no longer discharging into Turtle Creek. It's all going down to the plant. So, for those of you that weren't aware, so that little building there on the left, that was our old pump station. I think council members have all been down there to see that. This is, I don't know which one to point, I'm trying to look where everybody's looking. So if, that don't show up on the screen. That's horrible. Okay. We'll put that down. So if you look at the top picture there on the left, that's the existing, that was the existing pump station. So the next level down, that is the next level down when you walk down in. You can kind of see over on the left, that's where the sewage comes in. That's called a commuter. So what that does is that grinds up the stuff that can't be dissolved. I won't get into what it grinds up, but it grinds it up to make it nice and little to fit through the pumps to where it can pump it. It's the pumps there on the right there. That was actually a dry weld pump station, which means our pumps are literally, they're dry, they're not down in the waste itself. And then just the next one is, there's times where that pump station would fill all the way up to where when you're walking in the door there on the right, then the pump station, you can open that door and it would be right there. That's how bad it would fill up during our heavy rain events. So now to the right, there is our new pump station. So we've got a screen now that takes the solids out, puts it into a dumpster. That's our electrical room there to the right. Basically, this pump station here is basically operated by computers. Our guys can see it on their SCADA. If they get an alarm, they can flip up their laptop at home. They can see it. They can hit a button. They can make changes from home. This other one, they had to actually come in and do something. So that's a big key to that. Also, so on that bottom left picture, in the middle there, right underneath the pump station, pay attention to those 2 bigger pumps you see up there on the right. So along with this pump station, we built a Columbia Road booster station. This year was a game changer. So we pump 5 miles. Our sewage pumps 5 miles. Usually the standard operating procedure is you're going to have a wastewater treatment plant sitting at the lowest elevation of the city, and everything is going to flow into that by gravity. So your pump station is right there in front of the plant, and then it just lifts it up into the plant to be treated. Ours, we send 5 miles to our plant that sits up on a hill, for those of you that don't know that. So what we've done is this little booster station is what this does, is this what helps us get the sewage there quicker, and we can handle the capacity that we have. They're going through college, so Ben's been through it, we've all been through this. They always talk about friction loss. But when you're going through college, they always tell you, I ignore that friction loss, it doesn't matter. Well, in a 20-inch force main going 5 miles, it matters. And so from the pressure, from just the friction of the sewage flowing through that, this booster station is what it does. It'll read, okay, the pumps up at the pump station are struggling a little bit, so I'm going to kick in. So those two pumps you see there in the bottom right-hand corner, those are the two dry well pumps that were in the Gloucester Road pump station that still have a tremendous, several years of useful service life. We just moved them down here. So now what those do is those goes, we're going to help you. They kick in and they get it pushed up that hill. So that way we're able to get that 7.7 million gallons down to the wastewater plant without going to the EQ basin or anything. So that project's done. We're just waiting on our backup generators. Of course, when the electric goes out, nothing's going to pump. So we got to have backup generators. So the lead time on those, we're supposed to get on this March. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. So these are upcoming projects. This is our wastewater treatment plant. Our wastewater treatment plant actually is, we use what we call bugs. So it's just like microorganisms to treat our waste. So with that, we kind of have an activated sludge system in the plant. That's what the byproduct is. And in order to do that, each of the little circles there, those are basically a combination of an aeration tank. And then in the middle there is where the treated water is, then it goes down, so that's the process. We have to have air. Pumping air into those tanks are crucial to what we are doing. In order to do that, that's why I wish I had my screen here, or my pointer. So if you look at the three here up top on the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the dark area, you see what you see, like a bunch of bubbling stuff. Well, so that bridge rotates around those clarifiers. That's what they do, they rotate and they disperse air. So if you go to the upper right-hand corner, that arrow is pointing to the diffusers at the bottom of that bridge. That's how the air is generated, so you can kind of see how each one is moving. You can see how the air does. So that's what's putting air into our clarifiers to treat everything. We're to the point now to where our bugs need air. They need more of it, because the more you give them, the happier they are, and the more things they like to eat. So is what we're doing now is our wastewater plant superintendent did a lot of research. So this system that is in our plant is obsolete anymore. They don't make this type of treatment system anymore. So he actually found a plant that had this, and we are now putting what's called a fixed air diffuser system into each of those tanks. We're doing one a year. Our first one's in the process of being in now. We're supposed to be getting the equipment here in about 8 more weeks. So we're going to dock the bridge. We're going to remove those diffusers there. We're going to, the screen there at the bottom there on the left. So now we're going to have air all the way around the bottom of that. It's going to be continually pushing air up into that, to where it's going to make our bugs happy, to where we can treat, we can get the oxygen that we need to keep everything happy.
Yeah, I want to give our wastewater treatment plant folks kind of a shout out. So I think some of you may know, but our wastewater treatment plant, it discharges into the Little Miami National Scenic River. So obviously there's very strict requirements and regulations associated with that, and I think it's been, 3 years running, 4 years running, the plants received the National Association of Clean Water Agencies Award for not having any violations. So they do a great job. It's a very technical field, but yeah, I think this is just kind of another step in making sure we can stay in compliance. So.
I'll brag on our superintendent as well. He doesn't like it when we do this because he doesn't like to speak of it. But we've got one of the youngest Class 4 operators in the state of Ohio in our wastewater treatment plant. And along with that is the Class 4 license in wastewater treatment is one of those things that is very difficult to obtain. It's not really a test that you have to write. It's basically like you're going after your PhD. You have to write a paper, you got to do research, you got to present something, and then basically you submit it to the EPA, and then it's basically reviewed by a bunch of peers, done by a bunch of Class 4 operators that have been doing it. So Mike Tong, who's our Class 4 operator, he did it, and it hasn't been confirmed, but I've heard from several individuals that he is the youngest individual in the state of Ohio to receive that Class 4 operator license on the first try. There are some people that it has taken 10 or 12 times to get it, because you send it in, they review it, they mark it up, send it back, you get to work on their comments, you got to send it back up, sometimes they mark it again. You know, it's like that professor in college that just continues, just nope, 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 nope. but he did it. So that's what we have operating that plant right now. I'll say that plant right now is operating better than it ever has. He's doing all the research. He knows what we need to do. If you're in a room with him, I think some of the council members have experience with him. He loves what he's doing. And I'm not so quite sure how his wife handles that at home, but he likes to talk about wastewater treatment. This is what we have coming up. It's time to do our water tower painting. The next one, the one we're doing this year, that'll hopefully get started here once the weather warms up, is the tower there on the left, our composite tower. So basically, we're just going to be painting the top of that. What I have there in the middle, driving through Butler County, the Butler County Water and Sewer District has basically, all of their towers have been painted, and that keeps, every time I drive by them, that catches me at how they're doing it, because of how they're branding it. Each tower is using the same concept, but each one is just a little different. But it's still the same thing. It's got their logo, and it's in Butler County, so I think that would be a good fit here. So I think with Lebanon Commerce Center, we're kind of going to use, the Lebanon logo, Lebanon, and it's almost kind of odd because their colors almost matches ours, so we're going to be darker on the bottom, kind of stuff like that. We're going to try to do each tower from here on out kind of matching that or kind of something else. So 2025 we'll be doing what we call the logo tower now, but up here from everybody else it's what's called the bee tower, because I hear that used to have bumblebees on it at one point in time because of the honeybee festival.
Yeah.
So so I don't know, maybe we got to work that in somehow. This one here is Sean and I are actually working on this. So our AMI system is basically how we get the readings from our meters to send you guys your bill. We're kind of fortunate to where we have an electric system, our own electric system. Usually in a lot of cities you have an AMI system, but it's basically just for water. So the water does this thing and it makes it easy. Here it still makes it easy, but it does get complicated. So the way that our AMI system works, we have nodes. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner, that's in one of our meter pits, that little thing there sticking up out of the water meter, that's a node. So that transmits the reading of the meter to an electric meter, and then that electric meter sends it up to a unit that basically then sends it to our billing system. That's how that operates. So we're in the process right now. We've got about 9,800 meters total, somewhere in there, 70.
About 10,000 electric meters and about 8,000 water.
Yes, so we're in the process of doing that. We got some lengthy delay times on our water nodes, so it was just kind of working forward to where hopefully by mid next year, we're going to have everything up and running and get everything a little bit more accurate. So that's a big project we've got going on right now as far as the AMI system replacement. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Darren.
Yep.
And just a couple slides to kind of wrap things up. I just want to talk a little bit about the overall financial health of the city. And I think this slide's a good reflection of that. This represents, this graph kind of represents the last 5 years of income tax revenue that the city's received. You can see in 2020, the effect of COVID, we were flat. But for most cities, flat was good. Since then, we've seen good, good revenue growth each year. It's really kind of helping to drive some of these investments in projects. So, I think along with the revenue growth, City Council's been aggressive in reducing debt as well. So that's been a good combination that's put the city in really in a strong fiscal position. While we had you here, we thought, although these aren't city projects, it might be nice just to kind of touch on some of the, the private development or the commercial projects that you've either already seen out there or kind of in the mix. So obviously the Valvoline, Columbus Avenue is up and running, the Chipotle's up and running, Domino's is under construction, Script Coffee's going in the 535 North Broadway building. They plan on being open in mid-March. And then Tropical Smoothies open Jersey Mike's is going in right next to them, so they've started renovation. And then the new golf simulation business kind of there by Acapulco's is up and running, and looks like they're doing well. A couple of kind of commercial projects that are have not started construction yet. There'll be a new Dunkin' Donuts going in where the Bob Summerall Tire building is on East Main Street. They'll be tearing that building down and putting a Dunkin' Donuts in. That's received City Planning Commission approval. They're just kind of moving into that construction phase. Scooter's Coffee is going to be going in next to the Big Mike's off of Main Street. And then Wawa, which is kind of a national convenience store chain. They also do some food there. They're looking at 2 locations in Lebanon, one down off of Kingsview Drive, kind of right off of Bypass 48. And then they're also evaluating the vacant property that's just north of Kroger's off of Columbus Avenue. So that one's probably not as far as long as kind of the Dunkin' Donuts Scooter Coffee projects.
Scott, on the Wawa, is that they're going to go to 2 locations or one or the other?
Don't know. That's a good question. The way Wawa works, my understanding is, they kind of have different development groups evaluate locations, and then if they work, they'll go in there. So it's possible that they would do both. My gut tells me it's likely only one at the end of the day. The Kingsview Drive site is much farther along in the process than the one off of Columbus Avenue. This is kind of a nice little project in our Columbia Business Park that got built last year. I think a lot of folks have heard about kind of office co-working space. We have Orca here on Mulberry Street that has that business model. Well, this is more kind of a co-warehousing, small business type working space. So they've kind of got a little bit of office on the front end that can be shared by some of the small businesses and technical trade type businesses that operate in the back of the building, which is more kind of your warehousing or small production. And so these buildings are up and running. They're getting a really great response from the market in terms of getting filled up, and just another way to really kind of support small business in the Lebanon community. Lebanon Landing, so these are townhomes that are looking to be built off of North Mechanic Street between Pleasant and New Street. This was city-owned property that we entered into a development agreement with Justin Doyle Homes and sold to them. Their plan is to build 20 single-family owner-occupied townhomes. You can kind of see the rendering there on the bottom left that shows you what the buildings are going to look like. Obviously brick wrap, kind of fit into the historical character of the area. The city has sold them the property at this point, and they've got a certain timeline to move into the construction phase. And we're hoping to see that start construction this spring. Yeah.
Mr. Bronca, regarding this project, is it ironclad as far as owner-occupied, or do they have an option to rental? Because we've certainly got enough rentals in this.
Yeah, no, part of the requirements were deed restrictions that required it. So that was kind of a focus area of the city going into it.
Excellent, thank you.
Parkside Development, you've heard us kind of reference this already tonight. They're along State Route 63. This is kind of gives you a visual on the entire master plan or concept plan for the 250 acres. It's a large site. You can see the green space through the corridor there. That is a city park. Property is owned by the city. We started construction of a trail through that corridor, again, and that was grant supported. And then you can kind of see really a mixture of housing products and some kind of office commercial up front that you're going to see out there when this development gets the full build out. And it's a multi-year process for sure. But it does include an assisted living facility, some senior housing. It includes a lot of your traditional kind of single-family homes, some smaller kind of active lifestyle older adult homes. There is an apartment complex that's part of it. And then, like I said, some commercial outlots along the frontage of State Route 63. The access points that you see there are going to be signalized, and part of their requirement with this development is to widen State Route 63 to 3 lanes. They have indicated to the city that they're going to be moving forward with phase 1 construction in the spring. And so we're looking forward to seeing this project get off the ground. It's been several years in the making, but it's a big project.
Phase 1, I think, is pods 11, 12, and 13.
It's kind of the left side of left side of the map there. And then, just community events. It's going to be another busy year for Lebanon with all the events, but obviously part of kind of what makes our community great. So that's it. Are there any questions? Anything we didn't cover that you all wanted to talk about, or questions? Yep.
I apologize for coming in late, but one of the primary reasons I came tonight is I heard that you were talking about certain type of funding for like a skating park, like a skateboarding park, and that some of this funding was going to be appropriated through the fire department funds?
No. So there is, let me find the graphic on that. It's back here. There we go. Okay. So the budget does include funding for relatively small kind of skate park area with some prefab features. You kind of see in the top right visual there. None of the funding for that's coming out of the fire fund. And we kind of had a discussion a little bit about electric funding. Like legally, we can't take money from a restricted fund like that.
I swear I saw something that said something about allocation of funding, funds being pulled out of the fire department and including your group. So that's why.
Glad you asked, because that's definitely not the case.
I swear I'll have to find it, but it was online and it was like a formal document.
Okay.
So
let me know.
Seriously. Yeah, I know about that. But okay, great.
But and that's an important point, because we get asked questions a lot about how the city uses funds, and utility funds, any sort of special tax fund like the fire levy. That money is legally restricted to only be used for that purpose. So Sean, the electric operation is the biggest part of our budget. You're over $30 million a year, right? But that stays in the electric department. We can't just move money around based on need. So when we talk about parks projects, that's general fund. Those projects are general fund supported, and which is why they're really relying on grants for the most part.
But to follow up on this particular park in general, the skate park, it seems as though every whim of a group of or a small sector population that wants something. I mean, like we have a dirt bike park. It gets very little usage, and I believe I was on council when we looked at that proposal, and it was private funds. Is the dirt bike park still private funds? And then why wouldn't something like this be private funds? Because there is such a small set that where general funding would be allocated for this park for such a small group, and there's such a liability involved with this type of a park. Obviously, I'm sure you've got the money allocated. I just don't think that this is money well spent, considering the small segment. And if that's the case, we're going to build this. Are we going to have more priority with policing of kids skating outside of the park and anywhere within the city? Because that happens a lot.
A couple questions there. So the bike park is used a lot, and it draws a lot of users from outside of Lebanon as well. So I guess I would push back a little bit on the bike park not getting used. It's used quite a bit, and there's some events hosted out there. The bike park construction was a combination of some private donations, sponsorship, grants, and city funds. So it was really a combination of all those sources to make that happen. And so that's, the bike park. In terms of, the skate park, we don't, so one of the, I guess, the benefits of being a city from a liability insurance standpoint is you kind of use our parks at your risk. So, that question came up a lot with the bike park is, well, is that going to increase the city's liability insurance costs? No, because obviously folks who choose the mountain bike, that's a sport that they're pursuing on their own, and kind of the same thing. So we don't have to have a staff. I guess what I'm going with that is we don't have a staff out there. We're not going to dedicate additional staff or resources. It's like any park. We're trying to, obviously make sure we're, hitting various needs when it comes to park infrastructure. This project, if you look at the cost in the grand scheme of things, is, kind of on the lower end of cost. This is going to be a relatively small footprint. The goal is frankly to provide the kids a space to be able to do this that's not our downtown and our sidewalks and picnic tables and permanent parks. So the goal is to kind of provide a location where they can do it more safely in a designated area.
Where is that actually going to be?
Right now, the park board recommendation, and this isn't finalized, but the park board recommendation is Colonial Park North, so that's off of Monroe Road. There's a ball field there. You got a ball field, and then you got like a basketball court, a shelter. There's kind of an existing green space area between them, so it would kind of go in there.
What we did, and just to kind of address your question, because I hear what you're saying. It seems like it's a lot of stuff for a smaller group, but most really cool things start out small. I think our first carriage festival had 30 carriages, and now we have 130. And we're kind of known for that. In fact, we were laughing back here, but it's true. We ought to put the carriage up on our Honeybee Tower now, because that's really what we're known for. And where my father owned a motel, they had one of the largest auto parades in America. It started out in early history with a few vehicles, and now it's a 4-day event. So sometimes it just takes time for things to grow and develop. Like, we get a lot of ribbing on our bike trails, but I think having bike system in Lebanon, we have a premier bike system in Lebanon. There isn't a town around that's got the trail system either existing or in place, and the people that complain about it have never ridden on it. And you can buzz around town, you can be out in the country behind Barry, or you can be in the city. It's an amazing 2-hour ride to ride around Lebanon, but that will foster bike rentals, that will foster bike retail. People who move to Lebanon or come to Lebanon because we are known for the bike. The same reason why people want to live here, because of our history and how we treasure that and our structures and our architect, and we put a lot of energy and time into protecting that. So, but the city and the groups that have come to address the skate park, and I know Mayor Messer Mark was heavily involved with that, but they're even looking at movable jumps and whatnot, so they won't stay looking like that always. It can be shifted around, so we've even saved costs. It won't get, the kids get bored on this, we'll go in and, shifting gear. They looked at not putting it in a place that would require a new parking lot and whatnot. It's in a place that already has an existing parking space, because there's already things there, so we won't have to duplicate that. We save money on that. We're putting it on city-owned land. We don't have to buy land. So instead of that being a $1 million park, it's it's much less than that, and it's an alternative way to give kids something to do in town instead of zipping around and banging into things. And there'll still be those people doing that, but it's a splash pad is one thing. We get a lot of talk about that, but again, there's a cost, an ongoing maintenance cost, staffing cost, where a bike park can be relatively less unattended. But again, a lot of thought. We've been talking skate park for a long time.
I understand that. And if I could just add, and I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize, but just to add to your point, there are certain things like you mentioned when we got 30 horse carriages and then, 130 carriages. Those things are wanted and needed. The concern I have is the propensity of things like that that are already a hindrance or a problem, augmenting those things. We can talk about a bike path, that's great. We also have a bike path or a bike shop next to a bike path at Vado. So when I see something like this and I see kids on the side of the street and they're already doing those things, I think you're adding propensity of not only the kids going to the park, but going on side streets, and they're being more of a problem. This is something that we want less of, and this is just going to add and fester to a problem that's already on.
It'll take the kids off the street.
Exactly.
It
Take
taking
the
off
kids off
the
the
street.
street.
It just-
Give them somewhere to go. rather than-
Just like the areas that are down on crime and they don't prosecute, there's less crime going on. I mean, I'm just telling you that when we foster things like this, more of it's going to happen.
So what are you exactly afraid of in the state park? Because I can hear it in your voice, are you afraid that the element?
It's
some
not the
sort of
element as much
element
as
be
the
there?
overall ongoing problems that you're going to have. I mean, I don't know if you have kids that go across the street that do the skateboarding. They're doing it there, they're doing it here. You augment something like this, you're going to have a propensity or an increase of it. And unless you're going to have strict enforcement from the police in and around the area, making sure that these kids aren't doing it,
Doing what?
look, they're skateboarding in the streets.
They're already doing that now.
They're already doing it now.
So
They're
this will give them a
adding it.
place, this will give them a place to do it. So I'm the parent of a skater. We travel, we go to Middletown because they've got a skate park. So we go to Middletown, we spend our money, we eat there, we spend so much money there and time there because they have a park that she can use.
Okay.
So I don't let her just use, so I see it get used here. There's kids skating and they don't have a space, so let them skate where they're skating. I'm okay with that. This will give them a place to then go and be responsible. Like, the parents don't want their kids to not be responsible. So they're either like me who drive, all the way to Middletown, or, they let their kids go.
And it's
So,
dangerous for them to be out on the street, because
I
I'm
see it all the
born,
time.
raised, and educated here in Lebanon, so I know just about everybody and everything. And trust me, these kids get on those skateboards, and you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden, they go across the line, and it's like you almost like have to kind of creep when you're driving, because there's no place for them to go except on the sidewalk or
I've
out in
seen
the
other
street.
communities that have skate parks that have problems, that have had increased problems outside of just their skate park in their area.
What type of problems do they have?
The continued problems that are going on, skating in front of storefronts, on side streets, oncoming traffic, potential injuries, all that stuff.
That's happening now. Without a skate.
I don't want an increased usage of it. What you're saying is by having a park, it's going to diminish, and that's not necessarily the case. In some communities that have already researched this on, they're having augmented problems. It's not reduced their risk.
We can move on. Are there other questions?
Yes,
Yes.
could you just update everyone, because a lot of really great things are happening with the fire department?
Yeah.
Just to kind of update
Sure.
from what happened in November, what we're looking at in March.
Sure.
Talk about that.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the community for their support of the fire income tax levy in November, issue 16. So that, obviously that initiative supports the fire department transitioning from hybrid, full-time, part-time staffing model to a permanent or completely full-time staffing model. So the 0.5% income tax increase went into effect January 1st of this year, as did the 3 mil property tax reduction that is in effect right now. The city, we've aggressively moved forward with hiring full-time firefighters. We've brought 4 on board already and are continuing to recruit for the full-time staff that we talked about and committed to hiring as part of the process. There is a second step to the process. So there is a renewal of the existing fire levy on the ballot this March. So the renewal is for the reduced fire property tax levy, but the existing levy is a 5-year levy, so it expires the end of this year. So obviously, the renewal of that reduced fire levy is important. to maintain the operations of the department. You know, if you look at the funding model right now with the passage of the income tax, 50% of the department revenue comes from the income tax that was recently adopted, but the department still relies on 38% of its funding from the fire levy, and then we get about 12% from fees and other sources. So that's good. You're going to see that as issue 1 on the March ballot. And I guess the key points are it's a renewal, it's not a new tax, it's not a tax increase. You're actually renewing the fire levy that was reduced effective January.
Yep. Scott, who crafted that levy that just passed?
I mean, it was council. I mean, it was a council-approved levy. So it was the result of, many meetings that they had to discuss options. I think, you know, there was probably at least half a dozen.
You didn't have a committee that came in and helped craft or put together the...
No, I mean, I think it was a combination of staff and council working together, laying out what the options could be, and those options range from, you know, being completely reliant on a property tax moving forward to kind of this hybrid model.
Well, credit the council, it was an excellent levy.
So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
So the sore subject of Main Street, we're going to build 3,000 houses on 63. What are we going to do about that traffic?
So it's not 3,000 houses. So
25.
It's 2,000, about 2,000 units. So yes. But it is. I get your point. It is going to add. Obviously add
But, you know, I know
traffic. I was trying to pull up.
Township, county, or city all need to be involved. We've got to get the bypass and all that, see more development with fewer options for bypass.
Yeah, there it is. So, I mean, that's, you know, because they're, you know, the building the houses, the development has an impact on the road. That's why they are financially responsible to widen State Route 63 to 3 lanes. So, you know, the widening of their portion is part of the development. You know, traffic along State Route 63, you know, it's the straightest straight state route that connects I-71 and I-75. And so that's a reality that we don't have control over. You know, I get asked, well, can the city just prohibit trucks? Legally, we can. It's a state route. That's, you know, that's the reason why we're restricting, or we're only going 3 lanes from 741 into Lebanon, is to, you know, hopefully kind of provide some incentive for folks to maybe travel other corridors if they're going through the county. I mean, I don't want to be misleading in the sense that traffic's not going to increase, and a lot of that is outside of our control with development that's happening in the county, the township around us. There's no, in terms of a bypass, I could say ODOT, the county, there's no active support to do any sort of bypass. I think there is support to improve like 741. Masons, you know, done a lot of road improvements down through their community. We just try to improve connection points in other areas of the county to try to relieve some pressure on the State Route 63. Yeah.
How far is that 3-lane road going to go? And then is there any plans from the county? Because I know the county's been kicking the can for years. I mean, they even took money from the Lebanon School Fund to widen the lane off of 741 a few years ago. So, does the county have any plans as far as widening?
Yeah, so this was a slide earlier. So this is the section that the county, that is outside the city. It's outside Parkside, outside the city. It's really kind of from the western limits of the Parkside development out to 741. The county is actively pursuing engineering funds to start this year with the design to widen it to 3 lanes to kind of be consistent with what our efforts are within the city.
Hey, Scott, this is a quick question regarding the development, the park. I seem to remember
couple months ago maybe, that there was an initial drawing on some of that development. That park that's going off of 63, that's also going to connect to the sports park on the corner of 741 and Green Tree, correct?
That's the goal. So
Is the goal, does it
yeah.
also include bike trails?
So we are constructing now, it's actually contract awarded, and the construction started, the installation of the trail that you kind of see that orange line that goes through the green, that's a trail.
Right.
So we are building that all the way to the city corporation limits, as far as, you know, we have jurisdiction over. I know we've, years ago, worked with the township and the county to develop a regional trail master plan, and that plan shows then kind of the county extending this path through Union Village and out to the sports complex, out to Armco Park, and really could even kind of loop down into Mason long term. So, you know, kind of gets into what we can control is the portions that are in the city, and you know, our portions under construction now. And then with the widening of 63, with that grant that we got, that includes a bike path along 63 that'll get it down to Gloucester Road. And then the Gloucester Road project includes building a bike path on Gloucester Road. So really then, the only missing section to get, you know, this trail all the way into Lebanon, downtown Lebanon, is kind of that section between Gloucester Road and downtown. And we're looking at options right now. So I don't want to speak for the county because, you know, it's going to be their responsibility to do, but that's certainly everybody's intent.
That'd be great.
Any other questions?
I have one, this really is for the city, but you know the railroad crossings on 42 between here and Mason, is there anything that the city of Lebanon could do to maybe push them to get those?
Yeah,
Those are terrible.
Yeah, that's a great question. You probably should have put information on that. So the answer is yes. It's actually a coordinated project with ODOT, the Ohio Rail Development Commission, and the city. So there's 3 crossings there. Only one of them is city-owned rail line. The other 2 are I&O. ORDC has really provided the majority of the funding. The city's kicking in some funds to eliminate the 2 inactive crossings, just do away with them, and then completely replace and upgrade the 1 active crossing.
Is there a starting date?
It should be this year, yeah. So the funding's been secured, and we're moving into design phase. So yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's been a frustrating situation because, again, you know, the one that's in the best shape is ours. I'm not saying any of them are great, but ours has been the middle one that's in the better shape. The 2 abandoned ones
Stay in the middle.
but they're not. Those aren't our tracks. They're not active, so they're coming out. Yeah.
What about the one further up towards, in between there and the city, in between there and Lebanon? That one that's,
Columbia Road there.
what's that road? I can't remember.
Columbia.
Yeah, there's nothing active on that crossing right now.
Oh, that's good. That too.
Yeah. Anything else before we kind of wrap it up? I appreciate everybody's questions and, you know, taking the time out of your evening to, you know, come out and hear us speak. I don't know if City Council, any of you guys want to pitch in or, but.
No, I'm thinking more of your time, but thank you for,
Yeah.
I'm Mayor Mark Messer, thank you for coming out tonight. I think our goal is just to be as open and transparent as we can. There's going to be a lot of construction going on over the next couple of years, and when we give everybody an opportunity to see what's going on and the things that we have to tackle together. Thank you for your questions, they were great, and we'll hope to see you next time.
All right, thank you.